Well, hey there, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something you probably interact with all the time, but you probably rarely think about it from a corporate sustainability perspective. Okay, picture this. It's 2 a.m., you really need some medicine, and you pull up to your local corner pharmacy. It's basically an oasis of bright lights in a dark neighborhood, right? The doors slide open, this blast of cool air hits you, and there are rows upon rows of refrigerated medications just humming quietly in the background. Now, multiply that single store by thousands of locations nationwide or even globally. Suddenly, you aren't just looking at a convenient little store. You're looking at an immense, continuous, physical energy footprint. Today, we're exploring exactly how massive drug retail chains track, manage, and report this 24/7 energy footprint using some incredibly precise corporate accounting standards. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is a super quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll start with an intro to the SASB standards, then we'll look at the 24/7 energy challenge, mitigating costs and emissions, measuring total energy use, and finally transitioning to renewable energy. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Intro to SASB Standards. So the SASB standards are actually now under the stewardship of the International Sustainability Standards Board, or the ISSB, which is part of the IFRS Foundation. We're specifically analyzing the healthcare sector standard for drug retailers. That's Industry Standard version 2023-12. And honestly, this isn't just some generic set of guidelines. This is the precise, globally recognized language that companies use to communicate their sustainability risks and opportunities to their investors. It basically forces entities to pull back the curtain on how their operations impact the world and, importantly, how those impacts actually translate into financial risk. And for drug retailers, well, a massive part of that risk profile comes straight down to energy. Moving right along to Section 2, the 24/7 Energy Challenge. When we talk about drug retailers, we're talking about a highly unique business model. Just look at the drivers we've got here. We're dealing with chain retailers that operate thousands of locations. And to keep these stores inviting and, safe for customers, they're running high-intensity lighting. But here's the real kicker: the massive refrigeration needs. A pharmacy isn't just chilling sodas. It's storing life-saving medications, vaccines, insulin, all of which require super strict temperature controls. Add to this the fact that a massive percentage of these retail locations operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When you aggregate this always-on, highly intensive energy demand across thousands of stores, you establish a truly massive baseline energy requirement that literally never sleeps. Which brings us to Section 3, Mitigating Costs and Emissions. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact causal chain that keeps retail executives awake at night. Step 1, we've got that high, completely inflexible energy demand from the 24/7 operations and all those refrigerators. Step 2, this massive consumption exposes these retailers heavily to volatile, rising energy costs. Obviously, if grid electricity prices spike, a drug retailer can't just turn off their insulin refrigerators to save a few bucks. And step 3, this high consumption inherently limits their ability to control indirect greenhouse gas emissions. So, operational energy efficiency and diversifying where they get their energy from, those aren't just nice-to-have PR talking points, they are absolutely crucial strategies to mitigate some very serious financial exposure and environmental impact. All right, Section 4, Measuring Total Energy Use. Meet SASB metric HC-DR130A.1. I know, it sounds like a totally random strung of letters and numbers, but this is the exact disclosure code that sustainability professionals and investors rely on. It's the standardized tool used to measure a drug retailer's operational energy efficiency. When a major pharmacy chain publishes its annual sustainability report, this is the metric that holds their feet to the fire. It ensures they are reporting their energy data in a way that is comparable, consistent, and totally transparent. Let's break down exactly what metric 130A.1 requires a company to disclose. It's basically a three-part harmony. First, they have to report the total energy consumed. And this isn't just checking their electric bill. This is the aggregate energy from all sources, purchased and self-generated, and it's measured in gigajoules. Second, they have to report their grid electricity as a percentage. So basically, how much of their total energy pie is coming from the standard purchased local grid. And third, they must report their renewable energy as a percentage of that total. This structure forces a company to show you the entire size of their energy footprint and exactly what flavors of energy make up that footprint. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is just how meticulously precise the SASB standard requires companies to be. They can't just guess. When calculating energy consumption from fuels, the standard literally mandates the use of higher heating values, or HHVs, also known as gross calorific values. Basically, this means they are measuring the absolute total thermal energy available in a fuel. Furthermore, the standard requires companies to consistently apply conversion factors, like converting standard kilowatt-hours of electricity straight into gigajoules. The strict adherence to physics and standardized math ensures that when an investor compares the energy footprint of one massive pharmacy chain to another, they are looking at a 100% apples-to-apples comparison. Finally, Section 5, Transitioning to Renewable Energy. But first, we really have to define what renewable actually means in this strict corporate context. SASB defines renewable energy as energy from sources that are replenished at a rate greater than or equal to their rate of depletion. It's a very practical, resource-based definition. This specifically includes sources like geothermal, wind, solar, hydro, and biomass. So when a pharmacy chain reports that 20% of its energy is renewable, it absolutely must come from these specific, sustainable categories. However, they can't just claim renewable energy simply because they feel like it. The guardrails here are incredibly strict. A drug retailer can claim renewable energy if they generate it themselves, say putting solar panels on the roof of a pharmacy, or if they purchase it through a formal power purchase agreement, or PPA. But here's a truly fascinating rule. They are strictly excluded from taking credit for the renewable portion of the local electricity grid that is outside of their control. So if the city's utility happens to use 10% wind power, the pharmacy cannot claim that 10% as their own sustainability win. No way. Furthermore, if they use biomass, it can't just be any random wood. It must be certified to a rigorous third-party standard like the Forest Stewardship Council. So, the crucial point is captured perfectly in this direct quote from the standard. It deals with RECs, renewable energy certificates, and GOs, guarantees of origin. If a pharmacy generates solar power on its roof, it generates both electricity and a certificate that proves that electricity is quote-unquote green. Now, if the pharmacy uses the electricity but decides to sell the certificate to someone else to make a quick buck, they cannot claim they used renewable energy. They literally sold the greenness. To claim it under SASB rules, the certificates must be retained and then retired or canceled, ensuring there is absolutely zero double counting in the global energy market. It really makes you see the retail world differently, doesn't it? Next time you step into a brightly lit 24-hour pharmacy to grab a prescription late at night, I want you to look up at the lights, listen to the hum of the refrigerators, and ask yourself, how is this specific store tracking its massive energy footprint? Because behind every glowing neon store sign and behind every cold medicine cabinet, there is a complex, meticulously calculated web of energy management metrics, financial risk assessments, and sustainability reporting happening right behind the scenes. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.